This is Between the Links. And now, your host, Mike Heck.
The iconic voice of Esther Lynn welcomes you to a brand new edition of BTL. Thank you for having us on another Thursday. A lot to talk about this week on the show. A lot of fights coming up this weekend. Some storylines coming out of this past weekend's UFC 289 event in Vancouver. We'll discuss all of that and more. But first, let us introduce the panel in this number one contender battle. New York Rick is watching this very closely as we introduce the man from No Bets Barred, Mr. Hot Take. Always brings the fire, and guess what? He's not afraid of heights, so he's here live and in the flesh. MMA Fighting Zone, Jed Meshew. Hello, Jed. Welcome back.
Wait a second. Ricky's the champion? Holy shit, this show has fallen off. If Ricky's the champion, I gotta get things back in order, guys. Sorry about that.
Wow. And looking to get back to a BTL title shot, the Prince of Positivities from On to the Next One and Tough Hang, also from MMAfighting.com, Mr. Alexander K. Lee. Hello, my best friend. How are you?
What's up, my best friend? Jed, making New York Rick sound like he's going to be like the Juliana Pena of BTL. Come on now. I think he's more esteemed than that. Jed, let's face off. Face off, Bellator style. Listen, we won't let geography. We got technology.
Bellator style only works if one of us is there in real life.
Oh, you're right.
You can't both be doing it digitally.
That's true. One of us has to be with Mike, and then like Mike, let me stand. Yeah, let me square off here. All right, that's true. That's a good point.
Yes, very good point. So let's get into UFC 289 right off the bat, because Amanda Nunes dominates Irene Aldana. What a performance she had. It was a pillar-to-post type of performance. Gets it done, barely broke a sweat, and then she announced her retirement from the sport, which I don't think was a surprise to anybody. So, Jed, I want to begin with you. You were on the post-fight show, so we kind of got your immediate reaction to everything. But look, there's been a lot of talk about the GOAT and legacies, the performance, etc. We touched on a lot of that already. But one thing we haven't really touched on in terms of her actual retirement, Jed, because we don't get a lot of good ones in this sport. Usually it's too late or too much time has passed. It's sad leading into it. And not a lot of fighters do it on top and do it on their terms. So to me, this is about as good as an MMA retirement can get. But where does this one rank for you in terms of best retirements after a fight, the timing, all of it?
Oh, this has got to be number one all time, right? Like, I think pretty easily. First, there just aren't many good ones. We've had a few more in recent years, which is that's great, fantastic. It's a wonderful thing for the sport to start having good instead of sad retirements. So, but we still overall don't have that many of them. And even the ones we do tend to have some patina of off or of unfortunate about it. Like prior to Nunes' retirement on Saturday, I think the runners for best retirement are between Khabib and GSP. And both of those have their own problems. Like GSP's retirement is probably the second cleanest retirement, but he didn't retire in the cage. There was, this potential for him to come back, but then he couldn't because the UFC wouldn't let him do the things he wanted or pay him. So it kind of ended without ending as the clean split in the way Nunes got on Saturday, even if it was this triumphant last fight of winning a second belt, doing the thing. And then Khabib, who probably has the other best retirement, his has the specter of Abdulmanap hanging over it. He did not retire because he had completed the game. He retired because his father passed away tragically and he no longer wanted to play. And so even though kind of looking back, that's still a good retirement by most metrics, it is a very sad retirement. This wasn't sad at all. I don't know if you guys stayed and watched the whole thing or if you cut out as soon as the fight was over and the interviews were done. But Nunes was hanging around in that cage for some time, dancing, just partying with the team. This was a happy, happy moment. I think it's the greatest MMA retirement we've ever seen. So it was awesome. It's going to live on forever.
AK, do you agree with this? Is this the best retirement of all time?
It was super fun. It was super fun. We have to give an extra shout out to the cut man for coming in clutch, because she was right away was like, yeah, I get the gloves, we got to cut off the gloves. And I mean, that guy had to go in there with those scissors. I can't remember. I was on the watch party with you guys, and I was saying, if that was me and I was that cut man, I would be terrified. My hands would be trembling. I'd probably end up snipping like part of snipping one of Amanda Nunes' fingers off. I'd be so scared. I get it, it's not his first rodeo. This is his job. He's done this a million times, but holy crap, like he probably wasn't expecting to have to do that. Even though there was a lot of, retirement talk ahead of time. So huge that, listen, we got to give him the hat tip that made it better. I'll probably still put it second behind Khabib. And maybe the content itself was fantastic. I did listen. You had a little Reagan in there dancing. Nina was in there. That was all amazing. Good speech. We got to give her flowers, and still in her relative prime, still feeling like that she could fight more. So there's like a twinge of, I mean, if you're a fan of Amanda Nunes, which I am, there's a twinge of like, ooh, I want to see her fight again. I know she can defend this title like probably 1-2 more times, but I'm also happy to see her go. And she seems pretty, for the most part, pretty healthy. And we know that she has another baby on the way. So taking everything into context, that was great. But I'll still go with Khabib because there's a part of me that needs to see, that needs to make sure is good and gone. Because listen, Jed mentioned GSP, and that was great. We know but it did take him a while before we were like, okay, he's gone. There was all that talk, like if there was enough money. Of course, him and Khabib wanted to fight each other, and then it just kind of happened one day where I think he did a press conference. He's like, yes, I am retired. I'm not coming back, and that's great. And we know that one's done. That's a completed retirement. Khabib, I'm pretty sure he's never coming back unless, again, as I said before, Charles beats Islam, calls out Khabib.
Give it up.
Okay, listen. All right. Fine. I just got to listen. So I was trying to slide that one under the fence. Slide that one in there. But I don't think he's coming back. Amanda, if God help us, if somehow Juliana Pena actually talks her back into coming, again, slim chance. I think we're talking 0.05% chance, maybe less. But if that happens, that would really spoil that retirement for me. So I'm giving it a tentative A+, but it's still incomplete for me. So again, we don't have the benefit of hindsight yet. So we do have that with Khabib. So I'll still give the nod to Khabib. But yes, Amanda, if she sticks to her word and enjoys her retirement as she should, it's right up there.
What I love so much about the retirement, and even the fights leading into it, is that she didn't retire out of spite. And I feel like she retired for herself, but there was probably 10% of her being that retired out of spite so that she didn't get to fight Juliana Pena again. Because Juliana was there. She talked about storming the cage, trying to have a moment. Didn't happen. And there's no way Juliana Pena is the one that's going to get Amanda Nunes back. I don't think she's coming back. And if she does, it certainly is because of Juliana Pena. So great retirement. I agree with both you guys. It's 1 or 2, probably no lower than that. Now, I do want to talk about Irene Aldana, AK, because look, it's tough to sort of kick somebody while they're down, but this is a bad performance from Irene Aldana. It's a great performance from Nunes. I don't want to take anything away from the performance, but Irene Aldana just didn't have it. In my opinion, this is one of the worst performances from a challenger in a title fight in quite some time. She at least admitted to not being at her best, but she's raring to go back to the drawing board, come back, and find her way into a title shot, and she wants to become a world champion. So how long is that road back for her, and what's the next step towards achieving this goal in your eyes?
It's not that long. I mean, the road isn't that long. We're talking about the road at women's 135, which just logistically can't be that long. She's honestly one good win away. She really is. I was probably too kind with my appraisal. I think, again, we were on the watch party and I was watching and I'm like, man, at least Aldana's tough and just hanging in there. And I feel like she's sticking to her game plan. And then when I thought about I didn't rewatch the fight, but I did think about the fight after. And I'm like, oh yeah, she pretty much just got creamed. And her and her team certainly probably can't be happy with that performance. She was just never in it. There was just no big moment where we were like, ooh, Aldana looks like she has a chance. And really didn't. And this, again, credit to Nunes. Let's not just focus on the negative. Credit to Nunes. She was awesome. I think one of the best performances of her career. I know we love the first round finishes, but as far as going 5 rounds, this was fantastic for her. But yeah, Nunes didn't look great. Aldana didn't look great. Excuse me. I understand a lot of people thinking, well, she shouldn't get a shot again based on that. And it was tough. But I think she really is one win away. The division isn't deep. At some point, the UFC is going to go back to Mexico, and I get it. They have it might again. It's not looking like it's going to be this year. They are going to go back there, and listen, maybe Brandon Moreno's still champ by then. Maybe Alexa Grasso's still champ by then. That's great. They have a bunch of options. But maybe Yair Rodriguez is champ. Maybe he beats Volk, or Volk leads the division. Either way, they have options. But I think Aldana is going to be one of those options too. And what better way than, if she's not the champ by then, which again I doubt it, to have her challenge for the title, whether it's against, I don't know, Juliana Pena, Raquel Pennington, Mayra Bueno Silva, Holly Holm. I mean, Holly Holm versus Aldana 2 in Mexico. It doesn't sound great, but the Mexico part makes it a little more exciting. So I don't think she's that far away. I think it's one win away, and there's absolutely a world where Aldana becomes UFC champion in the future. This is women's bantamweight. It's not a great division. It's not a great division, and Aldana is still a top 5 fighter. And as long as she's in that mix and gets the right matchup, gets the right circumstances, absolutely she could have UFC gold around her waist someday.
Jed, most people who watch the show, and especially on the rankings panel, know how high in regard you put the women's bantamweight division.
Light it on fire, baby. Burn it to the ground.
But AK thanks Irene Aldana. One win and gets back to a title fight. Do you feel like the road is that quick, or do you feel it's a little bit longer for her after this performance?
No, I mean, it's one win and she's back because this division is abhorrently bad. So that's just what it is. Like, I'm not here to sugarcoat it for you. This is the worst division in mixed martial arts. That's a real division. Featherweight isn't a real division, so it doesn't count. This is bad. Like, I mean, just think about what's about to happen. Pena is about to fight Rocky Pennington for the belt. Pennington does deserve a title shot. Pena, I guess. She was a former champion. Sure. Fine. Doesn't really deserve it, but no one else does, so it's fine. After that, the winner of Holly Holm, Mayra Bueno Silva, is almost certainly going to face the winner of the vacant title match. And then, who is it? The longest win streak in the division's 3 friggin' fights, Mike, outside of Rocky. Like, that's it. And that's MBS, who's probably going to lose to Holly Holm. So it's just like, there's no one to face her. Like, whoever becomes champion has to have bodies to compete against. And that's it. Like, maybe Valentina Shevchenko bumps up, depending on what goes on with Alexa Grasso whenever they do rematch. But other than that, there's no one in line. So if Irene Aldana can get in and face, is Yana Santos still fighting? Is she retired? I'm not sure.
She's still fighting, I believe.
Then yeah, Yana Santos, who I think is on a 2-fight losing streak, if memory serves, is like number 7 or something. Hold on, let me look at the UFC rankings right now. I'm sorry, Yana Santos is number 6. So maybe Aldana fights Caitlin Vieira for a next title. If she beats that, then sure. Like, there just simply aren't the bodies to do anything here, and nobody's, not a young crop of fighters banging down the door to take over the reins. So she probably gets another title shot if she can win one. I don't know if she can or not. She's not a great fighter, but if she can, she'll get one.
2 things have really stood out about this conversation. One, as soon as you started talking about the women's bantamweight division, flashes of thunder and lightning outside of the house started downpouring. Pretty funny.
Oh, that's a bad sign.
And two, just trying to iron out how we're going to crown a new champion. And the mere mention of Juliana Pena's name has led to different inflections in the voice. But I want to have some fun with this. And Jed, we'll start with you because, as you said, Nunes is gone. Juliana Pena wants it. Raquel Pennington wants it, probably the most deserving. You mentioned the Holly Holm, Mayra Bueno Silva main event coming up in July. I'm giving you the book, Jed. Call me Dana White. I'm handing you the book for you to decide how to crown this new champion. How do we do it? Who is involved? What does it look like? Whatever you decide, that's what we're going to do.
So this is magic wand, not what will happen.
Oh, it's magic wand. It's what you would do if you had the power to do it.
Well, if I had the full power, I would end this division. I'm not even joking. I would just get rid of it until such time as it can be a real division, like they did with lightweight back.
That is not an option. That's not an option, though.
Okay. I mean, Rocky Pennington gets to fight for the belt. She absolutely deserves it. She's the only person in this weight class who deserves anything right now. And I refuse to put Juliana Pena in a title fight because I don't like her. And I'm not even going to pretend that there's any other reason. I just don't. The less that she's on my television screen, the happier I will be as a human being. So I'm going to go Rocky Pennington versus Valentina Shevchenko, who's just going to abandon flyweight. You know what? I don't need flyweight. Grasso beat me fair and square. She can go fight Erin Blanchfield. Good luck with that. You have fun, Alexa. I'm going to bump up to bantamweight, and I will be taking on Raquel Pennington to win my second UFC title.
AK, how would you do it? And maybe Jed mentioned Erin Blanchfield. She seems to be interested in wanting to go up and maybe fight for that title if the opportunity is available. So you got the book, AK. How do we do this?
Mike, we talked about this a little bit on Otno, but I feel like I may have buried the lead. I feel like it wasn't the headline of our show. This division cannot wait this long for a new champion. How long are we going to wait to crown a new champion in one of
hopefully
MMA's,
4 or 5 years
in one of MMA's most illustrious divisions? Because the way we're talking about it, we have to wait till the end of the year, might till like November, December before we actually have a title fight. Because I don't know. I don't know when they would plan to book. Again, if let's presume it was Pena and Pennington, I guess it wouldn't have to be that long. But again, we've heard nothing yet. Nothing's put pen to paper. If anything, no one's even talking about it because Pena can't stop talking about Nunes, and Pennington's pretty low key. She's not out there calling shots. She never does that. But we do have a fight on July 15th at the UFC Apex, and this is a chance, guys, to give some juice to one of these UFC Vegas cards. Listen, Holly Holm, Mayra Bueno Silva. I think we said it's Silva that has the longest win streak.
Second.
Three.
It's
Three
behind Pennington, but yes.
Who has like 5? I think, right? 5, 6, 5.
Yeah, Pennington's on 5 or 6.
Scorching. Mayra Bueno Silva a little bit cooler, but certainly worthy of a title in this division. So UFC, do the right thing. Make Holly Holm versus Mayra Bueno Silva for the vacant bantamweight title. We can't wait too long to have a 135-pound champion. It's been too long since we've seen Holly Holm in a title fight. This used to be like an annual event. When's the last time Holly Holm fought for it? It's like, years. 4 years. Amanda Nunes, the featherweight. This is a bantamweight fight? I actually don't recall that. That was a featherweight. Bantamweight title fight with Amanda Nunes 4 years ago. Too long. Let's end the national nightmare. Let's get this division back on track with a champion. And let's have it be either Holly Holm or Mayra Bueno Silva. Ratings, guys. Ratings. We got people say we always complain all these Apex cards don't matter. Let's put the bantamweight title fight on there. There you go. It's a problem solved. I did it.
Mike, I have an update for you. So
Okay.
my people got in contact. Shevchenko said no. She was just like, "Hey, no, I want to get that one back. We'll move up to bantamweight later, but I'm focused on, I want to move up as champion. So I'm going to respectfully decline. Got to respect her. One of the greats. So instead, got on the phone with Mick Maynard. It's going to take a little bit of doing. The paper is not signed yet, but here's what we're doing instead. There's a wonderful woman who I think can be the standard bearer for this weight class. Maybe not for years to come, but can certainly give it some much needed juice over the short term. Big star. And just today, Mike, successfully out-wrestled Marshawn Lynch on a reality television show. I'm talking about former champion Ronda Rousey. Now that Amanda Nunes is no longer there to bash her brains in, Ronda's got to be looking at this and like, I could probably come off the couch and armbar Rocky Pennington. That's very much in play for me right here. Maybe Vince will let me slide for 6 months like he did with Brock that one time, and I can just go make a triumphant return to mixed martial arts, grease Rocky real fast, and then pretend like I'm going to fight Holly. Maybe even fight Holly. Maybe even rematch Holly, who is not the same Holly she was at the peak of her powers. So that's what we're doing now. When Valentina rejected us, we're doing full court press on Ronda Rousey to come back.
Wow. Can you imagine that?
The scenes.
I hate that. Like, I would pick Ronda to beat so many women in the UFC.
Most of
135
the women
right
at 135 now that Amanda Nunes is no longer the champion. It's like,
get her back like, MMA training for like a month, and God, I think she just smashes
Dude,
so many people.
I think I'm taking her to beat Pena. Straight up, I think I'm taking her to beat Pena.
I no comment. No. How can you say Pena was responsible for one of your greatest predictions ever, Jed? How can you turn on her like this?
Because I used her for this great moment.
Oh my
and
God.
never need to be involved with Juliana Pena again.
Horrible.
Wow.
Horrible.
It's
I'm
hard to
telling
transition
you,
from that, but
if Dana still cared, if the UFC still had to try and make money the honest way instead of just put their hands out for ESPN to dump cash in their laps, Dana would immediately be calling
Yes.
Ronda right
In
now
a second.
and just be like,
In a
"Hey,
second.
Amanda's gone. It's okay to come out of hiding now. You can return to unscripted fighting, and you should fight Irene Aldana. You will wax Irene Aldana for the belt or whatever. Like, just do it. It'd be sick. This is the thing we should all be hoping for. More Ronda back in our lives to be a lunatic. It'll be best."
I got to tell you, I know you don't watch a ton of WWE programming, Jed, but the timing could not be any better for this idea to happen because Ronda is not over
back.
at all.
AK told me she was back with WWE this morning. When
She
I was talking to her
is.
about
She
it.
is, but
Oh, okay.
she's not over at all. People are kind of done with Ronda from a WWE viewership.
That's the thing.
Wow.
You gotta go
This could be
juice
the
the
time.
numbers. Get back to beating real ass. Then people must have forgot. You gotta remind them.
Really interesting. All right, well,
If this
that would be
happens,
something.
I would like a parade, an MMA fighting parade to be thrown in my honor.
And I feel like
This would be amazing.
You should thank like Juliana Pena again for making herself like such an unsavory option for the UFC that they would go down the Ronda route. So you would owe her again for another successful prediction.
I mean, if they get her back, it probably is to fight Pena though. They'd probably pass over Rocky for Ronda.
True.
Like, why wouldn't
Man, if they can't get Jones Stipe or Connor Chandler done this year, that there should be a full court press.
Guys, we got to stop this.
Why not?
We're going too far. I'm pulling on my rope. rope. I want out.
All right. Well, we got to move on, but this is really interesting stuff. The point for round one goes to a flash knockdown if there ever was one. Jed Meshew.
If I didn't win that round, I was going to be upset.
I did not see that coming.
Upset if I
I didn't see it coming. I circled right into it. And just got put in my butt. I mean, did not see that one coming.
That was a fake glove touch into a right hand from Jed Meshew.
He really got me.
Wow. So let's head to let's head to Charles Oliveira, guys, because what a performance from Dubronx. A lot of people were counting him out of this fight with Beneil Dariush. And the man just delivers in spades. Big finish in the first round. He wants the rematch with Islam Makhachev. Could very well happen. He wants it in Brazil. That won't happen. But the rematch could happen. Great night for Oliveira, AK. Biggest takeaway from that fight and his performance.
Listen, I said before, I wasn't ready to get off the Charles Oliveira train. It's in my predictions. You guys can see it. I think I predicted it second round. But I did say knockout. Did I say knockout? I think I said knockout. I did say knockout, I think, because Dariush is tough to submit. So happened a little bit earlier than I expected. But listen, that's what happens when you have two guys who are finishers. Dariush, who has a tendency to brawl. I just didn't like that strategy for him against Charles, and you can see why. Some guys just have that like unbelievable finishing ability. It's have that instinct. We see, some guys have it at heavyweight, that death touch. I think Charles has that at lightweight, and that's pretty proven. I mean, again, the most finishes in UFC history. I loved what I saw. The one thing I've never liked about Charles Oliveira getting another title shot is I wasn't all there in the first fight with Islam. I don't like that kind of talk. He says he's never rewatched the fight, and I get it. When you're at that level, when you're a championship fighter, you've got to do whatever you can to give yourself that mental advantage to shake off like a loss like that. So it's cool if that's what's working for him, is not watching the fight again and like really believing that he wasn't, that was whatever. That was 50% of Charles, 40, whatever. That wasn't full Charles. I understand. I'm not him. He's not making an objective evaluation of that first fight or his career. He's doing what he has to do to prepare himself for another fight with Islam, which he deserves. which he deserves. He is the second best lightweight in the world. I know we were joking last week about how it's ridiculous for someone to take pride. We were talking about promotions, taking pride in being number 2 and staking their claim like, I'm definitely number 2. But for fighters, it does matter. And for me, he deserves the shot again to prove that he's number 1. I don't think the fight would go the same way. I really don't. If anything, you go through championship history, you'll see rematches. There's certainly cases where they have gone the same way, but I would say more often than not, they don't go the same way. They might have the same winner. But they don't go the same way. We just saw Adesanya and Alex Pereira. We saw. I always think of Aldo and Chad Mendes, where Aldo smoked him in the first fight, second fight, 5-round, classic, amazing title fight. With Islam and Charles, we probably do get a finish again in the second fight, but I think he's done enough to earn, and it's just he's just the better option than the people who are out there, because Volkanovski, really, I just want to see him stay at featherweight. He can run it back with Makhachev someday, but why does it have to be so soon? Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler, please no. If one of them gets it, just no. And then Gaethje and Poirier, he just beat them. So other than that, then you're going for dark horses to face Islam in 294, which we assume where this next title defense is going to happen. And I just don't see why it should be anyone but Charles. So he's got to go into enemy territory again, and there you go. That'll be his last shot if he doesn't pull it off.
Jed, biggest takeaway from Oliveira's performance?
I think we can all acknowledge that I've been maybe the biggest Charles Oliveira supporter on this website for years now. I have said this man's the best lightweight on earth. And I was laughed at by some people on this very program. They looked me in the eyes and they said, "You're very dumb. I can't believe you would say such things." And I think he just proved, that he is arguably one of the greatest lightweight mixed martial artists of all time. And that I can't even keep it up. He doesn't deserve a lightweight title shot, man. I'm just going to look. He's one of the all-time greats, one of the best action fighters ever. Sensational win. Can't take a single thing away from his performance. And like I said on the post show, he's going to get the title fight next. And I'm not even that upset about it. Like, it's fine, because the way this is broken out, there's not really another clear and obvious contender that meets the timeline. I would say the winner of Gaethje versus Poirier deserves it more. I do believe they deserve the title fight more, despite the fact that Oliveira beat them, because Oliveira just lost. And one win is not, I have been consistent about this as long as I've been doing these shows. If you lose, you got to work your way back up, and getting one win, great win. Not taking anything away from that win. I just need one more. I need one more piece of separation between the ass beating you got 12 months ago. So I can be like, oh, I forgot now how thoroughly you got worked. Now it will be a compelling rematch. Instead, they're going to run it right back in the entirely same circumstances. Same shit's going to happen again. I'm fine with it, though, because ultimately is what's going to happen. I don't think he deserves it, but there's not anyone else that deserves it too much more than him that matches up with the timeline. And maybe he can, prove me wrong again. He's done it before. So this will be his opportunity. And if he doesn't, then maybe we can get Charles Oliveira the welterweight afterwards. And that can be pretty fun. Some fun things can happen up at 170 with Chucky Olives, I believe. So not a bad outcome by any respect. It's a little bit of a bummer for me in general that there's a very high likelihood at this point that Islam Makhachev's lightweight title run is just going to be a series of rematches, which sucks shit when we're talking about the best division in MMA. I'd rather him just beat up whoever the next dude is a bunch, but c'est la vie.
Or Oliveira can go to 145. He's still not shut the door on the return to 45.
He won't.
But
I have. I've shut that door. I've locked it. I deadbolted it, welded it shut.
Listen, did you see
it can't happen.
Did you see Pitbull? I mean,
yeah, he made it. Let's see what happens tomorrow.
That could be Charles.
Yes. Right, we'll talk about that later. But
we are going to talk about that later. Jed, I want to. This has been brought up a lot since Saturday too. Oliveira's popularity in the sport right now, because his star power it's up there. And outside of Abu Dhabi, when he's fighting Makhachev, I mean, he is over like crazy. He was the cat's meow in Vancouver. He looks like a star. He fights like a star. He carries himself like a star. He's a pretty popular guy. Is he really popular? Absolutely. Is he a big draw? That's another question. So I'm curious, like, what tier do you have Charles Oliveira at right now? Is he like an A1 star, tier 2, 3? Like, where do you have him in terms of UFC superstardom right now?
It would appear that he's either, so if tier 1 is Connor and Connor alone, no one else is in his tier because no one deserves to be in Connor's tier. Oliveira is somewhere between 2 and 3. I'm going to say closer to 2, but or it's closer to 3, sorry, but I mean, he got a way bigger pop in Canada than I expected. And then you kind of quietly can go and look at his pay-per-view performances, and these numbers aren't as good as they used to be, obviously, what with the ESPN deal, but 300,000 buys, 500, 400, 600, that's like really respectable numbers. Now, granted, he had a lot of great dance partners, Poirier, Gaethje, Makhachev, but talking about a guy who's doing pretty consistent good business at a rate that other people just aren't. So couple that with the pop, the reaction he got from Canada of all places, like that's a reaction I kind of would have expected him to get, in Sao Paulo or whatever, not Vancouver. So he's definitely, maybe not the A list, but he's a B plus lister at this point, certainly.
AK, where do you put him? I might be wrong about this, but I've kind of put him wherever Max Holloway is. That's kind of where I have Charles Oliveira, because Max gets the same reaction as well. If he goes to Hawaii or California or Canada or Kansas City, Missouri, Max Holloway is the dude. He is the guy getting the big reactions, the big pops, etc. Maybe Oliveira is a little higher than that. I'm not really sure. Max is a big star. Where do you put him as far as the superstardom ladder?
Yeah, listen, tier 3 is about right, because tier 3 I think is where we put popular UFC champions and contenders, right? Tier 2 is tier 2 for me is fighters who are known to most sports fans, right? If you're a sports fan, if you're really like, checking out, I don't know, whatever, ESPN or MMAfighting.com, because whatever, we have some crossover appeal, then you know who these people are. So that would be for me tier 2, be like Israel Adesanya, I think is in there. John Jones, I think, is tier 2. Khabib was probably tier 2. Again, this is saying that tier 1
Khabib was undeniably tier 2.
Yeah.
Undeniably
because tier 1 is for the crossover stars, the mainstream stars. Conor McGregor right now, Ronda Rousey would have been in there, Brock Lesnar would have been in there. It's not a long list. Nate Diaz is I think Nate Diaz and Jorge I would also put in tier 2, but I get it why people would want to put them in tier 1, because when they were kind of exploding with the whole BMF thing, it felt like it was tilting into the mainstream. But for me, yeah, tier 1 is really, you have to have some of that crossover celebrity. So yeah, Charles cannot be tier 1, cannot be tier 2, has to be tier 3. And that's not a bad place to be. Like I said, that's where most UFC champs would be. I was about to name champions in other promotions, but I'm not really sure anyone in Bellator would be able to make it up to tier 3. Again, with respect to the gentleman going for 3 division status on Friday. So yeah, tier 3 is where I'm comfortable putting him. And again, that's not bad. That's not bad. I think he is popular, certainly popular among UFC fans. Again, having finishes, it helps. Having been around just for a long time helps. He's been in the UFC since, I'm having to look at this up, by the way, 2010. 13 years. There's a fondness here. We've seen him grow up. He was 20-something years, in his early 20s, like 20, 21 or 20 years old when he debuted. Tons of hype around him back then. Again, for the most part, lived up to it. Some bumps and bruises here and there. But I think he's earned the kind of stripes that you can only earn from fans being there for you, not just when you're up and on your win streak, but when you're down, when you're losing. So there's that fondness there. Again, he never reaches, I think, that tier 2. Tier 1 range. It's just not going to happen. Barring a Conor McGregor fight, which please no. But I think he's comfortably in tier 3. Not a bad place to be, and certainly a worthy, again, a guy who will help you sell a handful of pay-per-views if he ends up fighting Islam again.
Last thing before we move on, and I've seen a lot of negativity towards Beneil Dariush since Saturday, AK. A lot of takes of, he was never really good anyways, and now we know. A lot of people discrediting that run of wins he had, discrediting what he's been able to do. Yes, I think it's fair to say that getting a title shot at 155 probably doesn't happen for him outside of something crazy and a short notice opportunity happening, but happening. But AK, what have you made of the sort of negative reaction about Dariush and his run after this loss to Charles Oliveira?
It's not surprising. This is MMA. If you lose, you were never good. You were never good. That's what people say. You just, oh well, you were exposed. Remember, you could go on a 6-fight, 7-fight, 8-fight, 9-fight, 10-fight win streak. Once you lose that one fight and the streak is broken, exposed. Favorable matchmaking. He beat people who were stylistically good, or they're not that good, or he beat guys who they're not that good. Tony Ferguson, he sucks. He's not good. Diego Ferreira, he's not that good. Drakkar Klose, he's not that good. These are the guys that Beneil beat. So obviously he's not that good. This is just, unfortunately, the nature of a lot of fan discourse. I'm not going to say media because, listen, I know people can say, oh, the media does it too. The media is critical. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. The media is critical, but excuse me. But I like to think, at least at MMA Fighting and a lot of our compatriots at other great websites, we do our best to dispel these myths. We always try to give guys credit because this was a really good win streak. You can't tell me Gamrot's not a good win. You can't tell me Diego Ferreira is not a good win. Drakkar Klose. Again, Tony Ferguson. At this point, I understand mileage may vary, but 2021, it wasn't quite over for Tony Ferguson just yet. This is just a fact. People have to have context, have to look back on it. His win streak was great. He deserved a title shot off the. Really, you could have given him one after Ferguson. I don't remember who ended up getting around that time. I'm sure there was someone ahead of him in the pecking order. But if he had gotten a title shot, it's not like it would have been the biggest travesty. Certainly after beating Gamrot, if you gave him a title shot, it would have been met with almost unanimous acceptance, except for the fact that a much more intriguing matchup came along in Volkanovski. So you really can't blame the UFC for putting that one together. And if you're like me as a fan, I was fine with either. I was like, sure, Dariush deserves it, but I really want to see Volkanovski and Islam fight. So he's just a victim of some bad circumstances, but by no means was he benefiting from, again, beneficiary matchmaking or good style matchups. He beat all kinds of different styles, put on exciting. I see people saying his fights weren't that exciting. That's crazy to me. I don't understand where that comes from. I see people saying his resume wasn't that strong, but you look at the current champ who, it wasn't his fault, but he had a fairly nondescript list of opponents on the way to his title. So yeah, listen, we've got to do our part, to dispel these horrible and dumb myths and revisionist histories that just pop up when a guy loses. Because Dariush was well deserving of a title shot, and I said this on the previous show, and I'm sticking with it. I still think there's a circumstance where he gets a title fight, but yes, he is not the first choice. He's always, if he gets a title fight, it will be as a backup, it will be as a short notice replacement. And he probably has to get another big win before that. And there's all these lightweight killers coming up, and probably he's going to fight one of them. But if he beats them, he's back on that. He's on the short list for sure. So there's a world where he gets a title fight, and I think we're still living in it.
Jed, your thoughts on the reaction for Dariush and his run after what happened on Saturday?
It's complicated because I don't fully agree with everything AK says there, but it's probably more nuanced than I can get in a 90-second response here. Everything he said about Beneil earning a title shot's true. Beneil deserved to fight for the title. He had an 8-fight win streak over good quality opposition, and no one can take that away from him. It is also true that and part of the reason he didn't get the title fight is none of his wins were that elevating standout win that demands a title fight. I believe these two things can be true at the same time. Beneil Dariush can have deserved a title fight, and Beneil Dariush may well not have been one of the 5 best lightweights in the world at the time that he fought Charles Oliveira. I don't think that that's a ridiculous statement. It's one that we couldn't prove because the way he fought people was he succeeded, but he didn't fight any of the top 5 guys in doing that. His best win's Mateusz Gamrot, who I have a great deal of respect for and think highly of, but the UFC doesn't have him ranked that highly, and I think most other people probably don't think as highly as I do of Mateusz Gamrot. And the practical reality is, in that whole run, the negatives that have come out about Beneil Dariush after that are unfair in the aggregate, but pieces of them are true. And I picked Benny to win this fight because I thought that he would do the first 4 minutes of that fight. He would get on top, he'd hold position on the feet. He could at least be somewhat competitive with Charles. Charles gets hit a lot as well. And Benny's proven to be very tough, and he's going to win the grappling. I picked him to win that, and it wasn't true. Once they stood up, he couldn't hold up to that fire. And we didn't really know that because the only dude he fought who could really put the mitts on him like that before, Drew Dober, who he immediately worked, and Drakkar Klose, who tagged him in really bad ways and who is 1/5 the power puncher that Charles Oliveira is. So, like, I don't know what happens if Beneil Dariush fights Dustin Poirier, but it's entirely possible that the same shit happens because he hadn't fought a elite level power striker before. So I think that it's okay to be critical of Beneil Dariush in the after fact, and saying that it is retroactively downplaying his run. Maybe part of that's true, but it's also just like we have more information, we have more context to assign to the situation, and I think it's fine. I know a lot of people get mad when we do this like retroactively about fighters. I think that it's actually just a totally reasonable way to approach sort of fight analysis and kind of our view of the sport in general. So for me, Beneil Dariush deserved a title fight. He put it all on the line, and it didn't work out for him. That sucks. But we also don't have to kind of cover our ears and be like, no, he was the bestest, and then he's still the best. It's like, no, we can say, okay, he did deserve it because like he did the things that you should do to get a title fight, but he also wasn't the best guy in the world, and we know that now, and that's okay too. I say it all the time. Being the 5th best dude in the world is an incredible achievement.
Well, there's the lightweight division right now. There's a lot happening, and we'll see where it all goes. We move on to this weekend. The point for round 2 goes to AK. It's 1-1. Good stuff.
Power of positivity. Power of positivity. Never fails.
Well, we have a lot of fights this weekend, gentlemen. 2 events Friday, 1 on Saturday. But I think it's pretty clear to most MMA fans that the best card of the weekend on paper right now belongs to the fine folks at Bellator MMA. We got 2 title fights, Vadim Nemkov versus 46-year-old Yoel Romero for the 205-pound title. We have Sergio Pettis versus Patricio Pitbull for the bantamweight title in the co-main event. Pitbull going for history and a 3rd divisional title in a major mixed martial arts promotion. Jed, let's start with you. When you look at this Bellator 297 fight card, and you can go in any direction you want with this, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, I have pulled up the Tapology right now, and the very first thing I'm thinking is, why in God's name are there 15 fights? We just don't need this. It's very not necessary. Please be more responsible. Post limbs, baby.
Post limbs. Post limbs.
It's too many fights. It's simply too many fights. That's an 8-hour fight card. 8 hours. It's a long time.
They're not going to air all of them before. Actually, last time I think they did.
It doesn't matter. It's still 8 hours worth of fighting. It's a lot of fighting. My second thought is, it's really more just a quibble because I know why they do this, because every MMA promotion does this. The main event and co-main event should be swapped. Sergio Pettis versus Patricio Pitbull, by just about any definition other than 2 dudes are heavier than the other 2 dudes, is the main event of this weekend. We are talking about Patricio Pitbull, the Bellator flag bearer, the standard of this promotion, the most important, most successful fighter in the history of this promotion. That is inarguable. Those things that I just said about him is competing against the current reigning bantamweight champion to win his 3rd belt in 3 weight classes, something that no fighter has done in a major MMA organization in history. This is historic. This is the biggest thing happening this week. Frankly, it's the biggest thing happening this month, and that includes Amanda Nunes retiring. Like, this is the biggest thing that could happen, is Pitbull pulling this off, because it has the potential to usher MMA, the sport, into a whole new era of things. Of, in the last 7-8 years, there have been more double champions than were in like the first 20 years of the sport, because the doors got opened that this was a possibility. And now every time someone wins a belt, they start talking about winning 2. If someone can win 3, then we're talking about, like, that's rarefied boxing air when you get champions who are spanning 20 pounds worth of weight classes, Manny Pacquiao's and stuff like that. That's what's on the line here. Yes, Is Sergio Pettis the best bantamweight in the world? No, God, no, of course not. But it does not take away how important, how seminal of a moment this could be for the most seminal fighter of this organization. And they're giving him second billing because he weighs 70 pounds less than these other two dudes. It's nonsensical. It's real dumb. And you should let this man cook in the main event because it's not like you're selling pay-per-views anyway. So give them the respect of this moment as opposed to defaulting to the heavier guys get top billing.
AK, what's the first thing you think about when you see this fight card?
Listen, all I can think about is emaciated Patricio Pitbull and him going for those 3 titles. Like, as fun as Yoel Romero is, listen, the man brings an element of chaos to everything. As much respect as we have for Vadim Nemkov, I think we have him number 3 in the MMA fighting global rankings. So, I mean, listen, he's legit. This is not... I know there's a lot of people out there probably still not like super familiar with Vadim, even though he's been the champion for the past few years. This will be his 4th successful title defense if he pulls it off. Excuse me. There was the he fought Corey Anderson twice. There's that no contest. I guess obviously we don't count on no contest as a defense. It's just nothing. So that was when they rematched. He beat Corey Anderson, 3 title defenses. Great. Nemkov is number 2. Excuse me. I had to check. So we have the number 2 light heavyweight in the world versus a bona fide star in Yoel Romero. We're talking about tiers of stardom before, and Romero would be, I guess, tier 3, which is probably still higher than, again, really anyone else in this card. So I'm playing devil's advocate here. If you're Bellator, this is your justification, along with the traditional heavier fighters have to be at the top of the card, which is, again, and I'm sure we'll talk about the PFL later. That's also the case there, which is somewhat nonsensical. But speaking of Bellator, yeah, it should be Patricio Pitbull and Sergio Pettis. There's just such a storyline there. I like the Nemkov Romero matchup. There's no story here. There's no history. Yeah, Romero should have been in the tournament. I guess that's the point. He didn't get his chance to. Injury took him out, I think, and he didn't get his chance to fight his way to a fight with Nemkov. Okay, sure. But Patricio Pitbull is your guy. I mean, outside of Michael Chandler, who again now at the UFC, he is the face of Bellator. That is how they have branded him and sold him for so long. So what message do you send when the face of Bellator, who's about to make history, does not headline your card? It is befuddling. And Sergio Pettis is a great story too. I mean, he's coming back from... You can argue whether they should have just stripped the title from him. It was a bit silly that they had a great bantamweight tournament and that it was for an interim title. So cool, they wanted to show respect to Sergio, but boy, if you're ever going to strip someone of a title, it's when you already have a tournament set up to crown a new champion, and then you just give Sergio. Bellator is Bellatoring right now. And I know we say that a lot, and it's kind of vague, and it's kind of childishly derogatory, but it's these little things that we always pick on. We always say Bellator is like so close to getting it right, and they just make these weird little decisions. And again, for anyone who's going to tune into the whole card, I understand you don't care. You're like, I'm watching the main event and co-main anyway. What does it matter what order they're in? But this is an optics thing. And again, you take a guy who marketed as the number 1 guy in Bellator, and you put him in the number 2 spot. It's confusing. Does not hurt my excitement for this card at all, but just for the purposes of this debate, and again, the little things that Bellator just always seems to kind of trip over. This is another incredibly strong example.
Yeah, this 1,000,000% should be the main event, but it is what it is. AK, if Pitbull pulls this off, and he looked very skinny on the scale, but he was smiling. He had his kid up there with him. He looked in pretty good spirits. Weighed in under the 135-pound limit. If he goes in and pulls this off, what does this do not only for his legacy, but what does this do in terms of how you view him, his career, his run? And I guess to kind of add to what we just talked about, how does Bellator capitalize on this?
He has a very strong case. If he pulls this off, he probably already has strong. I mean, he already is one of them. He has a strong case to be and I'm going to say this just to make Jed mad, to be the best fighter to never fight in the UFC. Now, I say that just because I want to. Because if you're me, I mean, I still think it's Fedor Emelianenko. I think Fedor is still the answer. I was just trying to troll you, because again, if we've done a damn, they were good. We know Fedor, the level of competition he was facing was just incredible. But there again, you can always argue that there's people who's always going to say heavyweights. There's still a skill ceiling at heavyweight. The lighter weight classes are better. Whatever. And Patricio unfortunately doesn't have that list of UFC related names that Fedor has. But there will be a case if people come to me, if Patricio Pitbull pulls this off and in a convincing way, like a strong decision or finish of Sergio Pettis, and on Monday morning after we've had time to process it over the weekend, people are coming to me and saying, I think Patricio is the best fighter to never fight in the UFC. I think it's a completely legitimate argument. This is such a, like, to go down and listen, a lot of people don't get the opportunity. I understand becoming a multi-division title is as much about opportunity as it is talent level and skill. Again, he's reached the point he doesn't have to fight his way to a title, right? Part of winning titles in multiple divisions is you'd like to see someone fight their way there, but that just really doesn't happen in MMA. So I think he deserves a ton of credit. This is legitimate, again, as any achievement, I think, in combat sports. I think it's right up there. People can scoff at it being all happening in Bellator. I understand, but I think Sergio Pettis is a really good fighter. I think I think Patricio has beaten good competition at 145. I think beating Michael Chandler was super legit. So yes, what's on the line here is, will he be the number one pound for pound fighter in the world? I don't know. I wonder if some people will rank him there just based on it no longer being theoretical, but on him actually being able to sort of, put the proof into the pudding, as it were, and show that, oh yes, I've actually competed at multiple weight classes. So pound for pound, don't I deserve extra credit for that? Some people will make that argument. And I think it's a pretty strong and fair argument. So a ton on the line here and a ton for Patricio to gain still.
Your reaction to that, Jed, and also just the tail end of the question. How does Bellator capitalize on this? Jose and I talk about this on the soon-to-be dropped preview show that we're dropping at 3 p.m. Eastern, but Scott Coe can go to the press conference all he wants and say, this is the best fighter in the world. This is the greatest fighter of all time, 3-division champion, yada, yada, yada. And that's great. That's what you should do as a promoter. But that can't be everything. So what does a win do here? And how does Bellator capitalize on this correctly?
I have no idea how they capitalize on this correctly. I don't know that they can. AK is wrong. Fedor is obviously the best guy who's never fought in the UFC. That's almost certainly never going to change. And I'm not here to shit on Patricio Pitbull. I don't want to shit on him. He's a very, very good fighter worthy of respect. So we're clear. The MMA Fighting Global rankings, the only rankings that matter, as we can all agree, currently have Sergio Pettis as the number 11 bantamweight in the world. So this will be a good, solid quality win. It will not make him the best bantamweight in the world. He won't be the best featherweight in the world. He won't be the best lightweight in the world. He will just be a very, very good fighter who has wins, good wins across 3 weight classes, which is not entirely unique. Other fighters have done that. Rarefied air, surely, but a very, very good career accomplishment that in no way stacks up to being the best fighter in the world for almost a decade. Fedor has that, and that's just going to stay forever. How Bellator capitalizes, I don't know, because I don't know how they succeed as a business. I'll be entirely frank. I don't know who outside of the deeply ingrained MMA fan base is watching Bellator, even for their good cards. And to be frank, this hasn't felt super promoted to me. If I didn't work in the industry, I am not sure that I would know that Bellator has an event this week, that it's a really good event, and that it is an event that is historically important. They have not boosted this among any of the non-work channels that I venture onto. So I don't know. Maybe the Showtime app has been blaring it 24/7 for the last month, but you don't capitalize on something on the day of. You capitalize by building this thing up for weeks and weeks and drawing interest in and creating a buzz that doesn't exist on a weekend where it should, where they're going up against the bad PFL weight classes. I can't stress that enough. Heavyweight and women's featherweight are the bad PFL weight classes, and this UFC card, which is not good. They could be dominating this weekend, and maybe they still will. They definitely have the best card, but I don't know if they are or not, because I don't know how this doesn't feel like it's even sort of transcended the hardcore MMA fan bubble. So I don't know how you capitalize on it. And we should throw this out because there's a big risk this weekend here as well for Pitbull. This is the other thing is, what if he loses this fight? He loses trying to achieve something great, but all of a sudden, Sergio Pettis, who should next be fighting Patchy Mix, could reasonably be like, why would I fight Patchy Mix? I would like to go fight for the featherweight belt because I just beat the featherweight champion and I can add 5 pounds of muscle and I can still probably tune this dude up. So it's a really interesting fight. One I'm very excited to watch, but it's definitely weird, and it's going to be hard to see what they do, how if they can get any momentum and what to do with it. I don't have any clue how that's going to happen for them.
One thing they should absolutely do is if Patricio wins this fight, they need to get their asses to Brazil and do a card in Brazil. You have to do it, and he has to be on it, and he has to headline it 1,000%. Or
is him versus Patchy Mix, I guess, is what happens if he wins?
Could do that, or who knows? He says if he wins this, he might just go after a 4th title. So maybe you do him versus the winner of the inaugural title fight.
He can't make 125 based on the pictures we saw today, right? The video and pictures, there's no way.
Yeah, that's gonna be
oh
be
God,
tough.
Please God, no. I know he talked about it. We talked to you about it, Mike. I know, but please God, no.
Yeah. Last thing, real quick, Jed, what's best for business in the main event? Nemkov winning or 46-year-old Yoel Romero doing Yoel Romero things?
I mean, probably Nemkov winning, but if Romero wins, it's funny. It's definitely the funniest thing. And then they can rematch it, and it's not like there's a whole host of exciting things going on at light heavyweight for them at the moment. So they could just run it right back, and Nemkov has a good chance of winning. But yeah, I mean, Nemkov's one of your young guys, one of the champions Bellator has on roster, who legitimately can claim or can make a reasonable argument to being the best fighter in the world. Even though I don't think it holds up, it's not an unreasonable argument to make. And so you want him to keep winning, you preferably spectacularly, but frankly, nobody looks good against Yoel Romero. It's just not a thing that happens. So he's probably going to win an ugly fight because that's the only way you beat Yoel Romero is with some real ugly nonsense, but still best for business. Yet another reason that this fight should be the co-main event, because you are going to send people, unless Romero does some real gnarly stuff, you're sending people home with just not on a high, on a huge downslope. So bad booking on this card, guys. Do better.
What time is it right now, guys? It's as we record 1:30 p.m. ish Eastern time. Let me say this now. On the Prince of Positivity, you guys know this. There's a really good chance that something happens to that Romero Nemkov fight. Romero did not look great at the weigh-ins. He needed the box of redemption. It did turn out to be the box of redemption. He made 205. Had made championship weight. He made 205, but he did not look great. He was not having a good time. He did the whole. I guess we I don't know, Mike. Sorry if you were going to cue this one up, but the press conference, he wasn't there. He was, which is fine. He's afraid of heights. Listen.
Don't make fun of people's phobias.
I won't make fun of people's phobias. It's a very common fear. Why was he was in bed the whole time too, right? He wasn't he was like chilling. He's just chilling in bed. I worry that he's just not doing great with this weight cut. And we will find out Friday morning that this fight is just not happening because he's getting up there in age. You don't recover from these things like you. I don't think he was great at recovering from these extreme weight cuts when he was like 5 years ago. And I can't imagine it's helping now. He's just recently turned 46 years old. I don't mean to be a pessimist. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be a pessimist. I'm just saying there's a chance that we get our Pitbull Sergio Pettis main event by default, as it were, by replacement. I'm sorry to be that guy.
Wow.
Nah.
I'm sorry to be that guy. Boo me. Boo this man. Boo this man. Go ahead in the comments. Boo this man.
What do you think's going to happen? He already made the weight.
Yeah.
He's going to show up. He's going to not do anything. He's going to go the hell out of this.
How many UFC fights have we seen recently where the people made the weight and then we get the Saturday morning UFC News alert on Twitter that, by the way, changes to the card, update to the card. I
Yeah,
think
those
that
people
might
want
happen.
Yoel Romero.
I
Nah,
know.
man, he's
I know.
fine.
I'm being
Yoel
bad.
Romero's
I'm
been
being
cutting
bad.
weight since he was 12. It's not always easy, and it's usually really tough, but he's gonna be fine.
He's
I
getting older,
on
man.
Look, here's the real thing. I can't say this actually because it's literally a baseless claim, but come on. Acrophobia was not what kept him in bed. He just didn't want to do that shit, man. He's just like, I'm not
It's
feeling the vibes right now.
yes.
I'd rather
I
hang
agree with too.
here. Look. Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero is a champion for the new era of work. Work from home, people. We got it 3 years ago. You can do anything you want via Zoom call, and he's figured it out. He's a man of the people, the soldier of God is, and he just wasn't here for it. It's like, I don't want to go all up all those steps. That sounds shitty. I'm gonna sit here in my bed. I've got my Zoom camera right here, and I've got, reruns of Big Brother or whatever it is. I don't know what kind of shows Yoel Romero might be a fan of watching. What kind of TV shows do you think he's a Wire guy or like The Sopranos? So he's just doing that, chilling from his bed. Let him live his life. He's an old man, AK. Let him live his
He
life.
is an old man. Does he not? Does he not fly? Does he not fly? Do you think they just he just passes out? Do you think they just give him a couple of pills and just he sleeps his way through flight? Does he not fly?
Did anyone, I have no idea actually. Did anyone confirm that that's what Yoel said, or are we taking his acrophobia from
He said
Chael
it.
Sonnen as the, did he say it or did Chael say it?
Didn't
I
he
mean,
say,
Bellator retweeted it and stuff and put it on their social
Oh,
channels that was the
Okay.
case. So
I mean, again, I need a human being to proactively say that statement that's not Chael Sonnen before I really give it credence.
Romero's via translation, he apologized to everybody. Getting inside that building is a fight that he knows he's not going to win. And then Romero said, and we have a lovely quote graphic of this on our socials. Romero said, "Not even with my kids would I be able to go up on a Ferris wheel." So I don't know if he was joking. We have a YouTube video of him also being terrified in the article on MMAfighting.com. So seems pretty legit. I think he just is one of those guys that he does whatever he needs to do to pass out on a
There's
flight.
no way he doesn't fly because he was at the
Yeah.
Sydney Olympics.
He's probably just asleep the whole. He's probably asleep the whole time. He's just sleeping.
Dude, honestly, I'm more mad we didn't do that. Give Yoel Romero some Valium to be at the presser, then that's just good times.
That would have been incredible. That's what you want.
Maybe you
Put the
don't want to
shades
do
down.
Valium while you're cutting weight, though. That could be the thing.
I'm not a doctor.
Sure.
It seems bad.
It's probably
it
not
doesn't seem
helpful.
like a great idea. A lot of good prospects on this card too. I wish they put Norbert Novenyi on the main card. I think he's one of the 5 best prospects in the sport right now. So I'm excited to see what he can do. There's a lot of good up and comers on this card.
Who have you established as one of the 5 best prospects in the sport?
Norbert Novenyi Jr., a guy who's going to fight Johnny Eblen at some point for the middleweight title, and it's going to be fun as hell. But let's move on. By the way, Jed, to make the 15 fight sound more palatable, 4 days ago, this is an 18 fight card, and 3 have fallen off.
I mean, still got time.
Austin Vanderford. We're losing it. We lost Austin Vanderford.
Yeah. That was actually one of the more interesting fights on the card. But let us move on to the other events
Edwin
this weekend.
Can just leave. We don't need Cody Law versus Edwin Chavez. I'm looking where I can cut some fat here. Oh yeah. Oh, I get rid of so many of these fights.
Oh man.
Easy game.
Well, let's get rid of one of these points. The point goes to this ended up being a lot closer than I thought it was going to be, especially with AK laying out the guidelines of positivity first. But Jed was just positive enough to squeak out the round. It's 10-9.
AK
guys
threw it away.
I kept it real. For once, I kept it real. This is what I get. You guys, listen. You guys might not see
keeping it real goes wrong. AK.
You might not see Yoel Romero fight Friday. I'm just saying. You might not see it. All right, I said it.
Okay. Well, if that is the case, I will transfer the point over to you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's more than fair. You're a fair man.
I accept this.
Okay.
If Yoel does not compete tomorrow, we can go back and change these scores.
Yeah, and if Ronda Rousey is booked to fight in a UFC fight this year, Jed is the automatic champion of BTL, even if he loses 15 in a row. He goes
time.
into 2024 as the champion.
Big time.
Speaking of the UFC, they're back on Saturday. The main event, very middleweighty, Marvin Vettori versus Jared Cannonier. And AK, as you said on Otno, and as I've learned a little bit more looking at this card, and I'm interested to get Jed's reaction to this, I actually think compared to most Apex cards, this is a pretty solid card. This is a pretty solid one. What's the gymnastics score here? What are you grading this one on paper?
I personally really like this card. I'm just looking at it now. Look at it. We've got a lot of bantamweights, a lot of flyweights. We've got named fighters. We have a few ranked. I want to say, obviously, in the main event, Arman and
Joaquin
Zalgas. I think Zalgas
yeah.
is still in our. No, maybe not. No, I'm sorry. I'm getting confused with David Dvorak. I apologize. But yeah, this is a good look. This is a good looking card, and I think one of those cards that a classic fight night finishes on the prelims, and then maybe it slows down a bit on the main card, but then you get some compelling, like sort of decisions. The main event, it's weirdly the main event. Like I don't love. That's probably like, you know, if it were up to me, I would love to see Arman in the main event, but I get it. You can't sell Arman Tsarukyan and Joaquim Silva as a main event fight. That's fine, but that's my main event for me.
Why not?
I'll go.
We used to do public executions in this country.
Okay. Listen, Joaquim Silva is a respected veteran. All right. I will go 8.4. 8.4. That's like my standard score, I think, for a overlooked but promising fight night. So I'll go 8.4 if everything goes correctly. That's pretty disrespectful to 289, which I gave like an 8.8. So I'm saying like this is just barely a notch below 289. But I have a feeling a lot of people will agree with me on that. So I stand by it.
Jed, do you agree with that?
That's insane, dude. That is insane. How I need you to justify this. Like, I totally understand your score. That's not what the card is. That's what this card can be. I need you right now to walk me through. There are 14 of them, so I don't need you to walk me through 14 fights. Give me the 4 things that happen that make me walk away being like, this was a good use of my Saturday. I'll remember this fight card.
I am ready. Dominant Arman Tsarukyan win over Joaquim Silva. All right. Like I said, public execution. I'm down for it. I'm sick like that. Love it. I'll go all the way down. I'm not going to do a top. Armin Petrosian, Christian Leroy Duncan. I'm very high on Christian Leroy Duncan, so that may have something to do with it. I admit Armin's fights have not been
all awful to watch.
Have not been great. So I'm leaning towards the Leroy Duncan side here and hoping that he takes care of business. I like Sabatini, Lucas Almeida. I think that's a really good featherweight fight. No comment to Manuel Torres, Nicolas Mota. You can probably toss that one in the bin. Dalby, Salikov. I love watching Nicholas Dalby fight. I just wish he fought more frequently because I think he's one of the underappreciated like bangers of the welterweight division. Bantamweights, listen, I'm never going to say anything bad about bantamweights. We got 2 of those. Jimmy Flick, that fight with Charles Johnson didn't go his way. I'm still excited to see him fight again. Got a lot of flyweight under opportunities here, Jed. I'm saying I know they might be dead in 2023. I know 2023 hasn't been a good year for flyweight unders. I think we might get 2 out of 3 on this card.
I've bet them. We're going for it. But actually listen to what you're saying right now.
Hold on. I actually like the Bleda Fernandez matchup. I like the Argeda Lawrence matchup. Paga Bukauskas. I like Bukauskas, but I think that's going to be ugly. You can toss that one in the bin too. So there's a couple of fights where I could certainly live without. But
yeah, and even the ones you can't aren't memorable or important. Like if this card goes the best it possibly can, it's like a 7. It's like a 7 that it maxes out at.
Memorable. We have literally just the UFC alone, and we're not even talking about again how many other fights there are this weekend.
You are saying I want to make you take this and own this take. You are saying that this is less than a half point different than Amanda Nunes' retirement and Charles Oliveira beating the life out of Beneil Dariush.
I completely stand by
this card maxes out like 289 did. You're going to be thinking in your memory of MMA, the night Amanda Nunes left the sport and the night Marvin Vettori just clinch wrestled Jared Cannonier for 25
that's gonna be
minutes.
rough.
That is an insane take,
No,
AK.
listen,
I
that main
know
event-
that you don't want to
No.
want to shoot from the hip.
No.
You don't want to give this the 7 that it maxes out at.
No.
But if this card maxes out, it is a 7 at best.
You are confused. You guys, once again, well, I guess you're not confused. You do understand the whole max out concept.
I am using your rules and
That's fine.
explaining why you're wrong.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate that you at least understand, Jed, the criteria that I am working under.
I
And
think
agree.
it's great criteria.
This
I
main
genuinely
event,
believe it's good criteria.
this main event could bring it down a lot, because the main event is, it's not the only thing you remember from these fight night cards, but it's a big takeaway. It's what most of our headlines are going to be about on Sunday. When we talk about it on Hecker Morning and the following BTL, that's probably what we're going to talk about. Vettori and Cannonier, they're ranking in the middle 8. So it is unfortunate that fight, boy, if we don't get a finish somewhere, I can't imagine it being an exciting decision. Maybe we're wrong. Listen, Vettori's fight with Costa was fantastic, but I just, this whole matchup with Cannonier on paper, not pretty. It's not pretty. So theoretically, that should bring down the score. But again, the degree of difficulty, again, is always going to be higher than what we actually expect to happen, right? So I do think this could leave a very good taste in people's mouths if they tune in, if they choose to tune in. I'm not saying this is not an 8.4 like anticipation rating. This isn't saying like, oh, you should definitely tune in because this is possible. I just think that there are people who, if they're fortunate, will be rewarded. Will it land in the 8.4 range? I don't know. I can't predict the future. But this is the most positive outlook I can have. And we've seen worse cards. Like the 7 is I would reserve for some of the cards that certainly some of the deplorable cards we saw last year. I guess if you wanted to, you could rate those even lower. But my scale is pretty. Yeah.
Yes, I would.
My scale starts at like 6.5. All right, and then I add from there. How about that? I'm very rarely going to say like a UFC level card is a 6 or below. Maybe I'm giving the promotion too much respect now, but I will say, I'm very rarely going to go lower than like 6.5. So you can use that as sort of a reference point as well.
This is a 7, man. Like, of the 28 fighters competing, 16 have wiki pages. And I want to stress to you, you can make your own wiki page. You can literally just go do it right now if you're a professional fighter.
Mm-hmm.
And over half of the competitors on Saturday haven't even done that. Like, it is
by that gauge, this Bellator card isn't great either.
I agree. I'm not here to tell you it's great, but it at least has a high end where if it hits, we're talking about things forever. If this fight card hits, we are maybe talking about Arman Sarukian for 4 days. Like, it's just, this is a 7 at best.
Hold on.
This is a 7.
I will add
it
this.
is probably like a 4.
I will add this. I don't think you're giving credit for the potential weirdness that could happen in the main event. This is not a middleweight main event, because again, these guys are contenders, like, world title contenders.
It is, though.
But spiritually it is. Like I said, it is this the beauty of middleweight. Even at the higher levels, the fights are still just kind of bleh. But I feel like this could be bled in a fun way if something stupid happens. Someone's getting kicked in the groin. Someone's getting poked in the eye. Maybe the referee. Maybe we see our first
all of those
bump
things
in an
can
octagon.
happen.
All those things can happen, and then we're talking about it in a funny way. And so I'm really standing by my 8.4. Okay, this isn't an 8.4.
You're just doubling down because I have to on it.
I have to.
Look, I don't know what card rates as a 10, but I think that's my main issue with the way you are so generous with your scores is that I actually like a lot of these fights individually. Like, it's some pretty decent matchups, but the totality of it is a wall of mediocrity. And if this hits as best it can, it still doesn't deserve a B. It just doesn't deserve a B. It deserves a passing grade if everything goes right. And if everything doesn't go right, it fails. And that's where we should be at. That's why this should be a max score of like 72. And that's it. It's got to hit all the marks to get a passing grade. Otherwise, we're talking D- here.
See, but this is like a Richter scale, though. It's like the degrees go up by so much. Like 8.4 sounds like it's close to 10, but it's not really close to 10, right? Like once you hit 9, then every point in above 9, like 9.1, 9.2, 9.3 is like exponentially more than the previous point. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it sounds like 8.4 is close to 10, but it's not. On my scale, 8.4 is actually really far away from
I'm just
10.
not going to agree with your scale in this.
Well, I keep listen. I keep
got too
changing
much
it.
friction there because
keep
I don't
changing
have
it,
a problem
so it's
being
hard
like
to-
that's a 2. That is a 2 of a card, and you should do other things with your
No.
time.
There's
This isn't a 2. It's a 6. It's a 6
There's
and a
no
half to a
2s in the
7,
UFC.
somewhere in
If
there.
you're watching the UFC, you're not getting a 2. All right, that's the UFC is a brand of excellence. This is a brand of excellence. How dare you?
Listen, I'm telling you right now, if Zalga Zumagulov goes out there and just runs over Felipe Bunez, there's
That would be
like
dope.
people are gonna have so much fun. People are gonna have so much fun with the hairdo and
See.
everything. He's gonna get a boost if he has a performance like that. I'm not 8.4 on this card, but I'm probably like 7.9 to 8.1 range. I actually think there's a lot of like really fun fights on here. It's not a ton of star power, and I get Vettori Cannonier could be, well, Vettori Cannonier, but I actually think it's gonna be a pretty fun fight, mostly because there's not a ton of stakes here. So sign me the hell up. I actually think it's gonna be pretty good. Let's move over real quick to PFL 5, and Jed, we'll start there because we'll start with you because you will be there in the ATL.
Boots
Your
on the ground,
favorite
baby.
divisions, heavyweights, women's featherweights. We have Ante Delija, the reigning PFL heavyweight champion, taking on former UFC fighter, the crochet boss himself, Maurice Green, which means if Maurice Green is around, that means John Jones might not be too far behind. We got Larissa Pacheco in the co-main event. How excited are you for this one, Jed?
So I said previously, and totally stand by the statement, worst 2 divisions in the PFL, and that's very, very true. I enjoy them both a great deal because I'm a sicko. And heavyweight fights will never not be funny to me because they're either going to be over in about 90 seconds or they're going to be just the slappiest, awfulest 15 minutes of drudgery. And fortunately, I think we're largely going to avoid that this week. Ante Delija probably going to get a win, but we got stakes here, Mike, because the PFL is dumb. Love you, PFL. See you guys tomorrow. But your season is very stupid because there is a very realistic world where Ante Delija can beat Mo Green tomorrow and not make the playoffs because his first fight didn't happen because he had to pull out of it. And so he is currently at 0 points in the heavyweight standings. Maurice Green got a second round finish. He's got 5 points. If some other things break and we have multiple people with, 6 points, 5 points, Delija needs a win in under like 2 minutes into the second round or something like that to move ahead of Maurice Green. And if he just gets a decision win and gets 3 points, he's probably like a lock to not make the playoffs at this juncture. So stakes because the PFL structure is very dumb that their defending champion goes 1-0 and doesn't make the playoffs, and the dude he beats will make the playoffs. So, that adds a fun little wrinkle of excitement. He's got to try and get a victory. Larissa Pacheco's gonna also kill someone, so that's pretty cool. And Hanan Ferreira, me and GC talked about it on No Bets Bar. There was a Hanan Ferreira moment where I was like, maybe this guy's gonna be something. He's not, but he still has the potential to do violent, cool things. So look, we're going to have to sit through Aspen Ladd and Julia Budd fights, which is tough, but I've found the way to make that interesting by parlaying the 2 of them together in the double D parlay because Aspen Ladd with 2 Ds and Budd with 2 Ds and just, running that in. But the rest of these fights are whatever, the PFL fights, but I'm going to be there. So it's going to be dope.
The
Okay,
double
and,
D
maybe-
parlay.
Double D
How about
parlay,
that?
baby.
AK,
I am banking parlay money on Aspen Ladd. What can go wrong?
On letters.
Yeah.
I
And
hope
on
it was
Aspen
like,
Ladd, who has never let anyone down in a mixed martial arts cage.
I hope
Old
it was
reliable. That's what they call her.
It should only be a quarter Machunit worth of risk on this, right?
Oh yeah. Not a high level of risk, but we're just here to have fun. I look for gimmicks where I can find.
Yeah.
I've got the Christian parlay in the UFC, Canones and CLD.
There you go. AK, and maybe Don Davis needs to
Uh-huh.
create a graphic comparing the 3 cards for you to give an actual answer. But how do you like this PFL card?
I've stared at this PFL card actually multiple times over the week because little inside baseball. I'm one of the editors who helps handle sort of um, like when you see on MMAfighting.com, when you go to the schedule page and sort of see it updated. I'm one of several editors who handles that, and so I've had to look at this card throughout the week, just kind of waiting for the order to be finalized. So I've stared at these names. I felt so little emotion, and I say this as a big fan of Larissa Pacheco, who again she should be main eventing over Ante Delija and Maurice Green. Listen, fair play to both. I know Delija is also a 2022 champion. He was the heavyweight champion last year. So they're both champions. I understand. And again, heavier in combat sports always goes top of the card. But Pacheco, again, she beat Kayla Harrison. I feel like she got a little bit of a rub off that. I think even though Jed's right, there's a lot of urgency with Delija and Green because Delija needs a first round finish to have a chance to make the playoffs. I think Pacheco and LeBrock has a big chance of getting finished. And I just think Pacheco's like really exciting. I almost wish they had a more promotional push behind her. I'm not saying like they need to push her as much as Kayla Harrison. I understand the inherent advantages that Kayla Harrison has as far as being marketed to a North American audience. I get it. That's fine. But there's a lot to, I do think there's a lot to work with Pacheco. And I wish that they had made this the main event. But the rest of the card, Jed is right. You really got to spice it up with some gambling, I think. We had one fighter miss weight. If that's intriguing to people, Evelyn Martinez missed weight again for Marina Moknatkina, the Marina Moknatkina fight. But yeah, the PFL season is just so weird in the best of circumstances. And then you add in the drug test suspensions, and it's hard. It's hard to kind of get super excited for these regular seasons. I think it'll kick up again when the playoffs roll around, which is great. The stakes are more clear, and you have probably the names that deserve to be there. Though Delija should be there, and we don't know what's happening there. But right now, it really is difficult to get up. The only thing is, I will say, I feel like PFL has had good luck this season with some having some exciting finishes, several exciting finishes per card. This hasn't been the case every year. There's been some cards that have been a super drag, not just because of the pacing, but because you just get some listless decisions against fighters that, again, the majority of fans have no investment in. At least this year, they've gotten a handful of highlights. They've been able to push those on social and make it seem like PFL is an exciting product. And if you're the league, you're doing a great job of at least selling that. So I think there's a chance for finishes here, especially on the main card. And that can only be good for the PFL. But yeah, I can't lie to you guys. I'm not like super enthused. This would be be in the 6.5 range if we're talking degree of difficulty.
Well, get excited. Weekend full of MMA, 2 cards tomorrow, 1 card on Saturday. The point for round 4 goes to Alexander K. Lee. It's 2-2.
Sorry, PFL. Sorry, I gotta keep it real. I keep it real for the people.
All right. So that means it's time for the knockout round. Well, each gentleman will have 60 seconds to answer a question. We're going back to Let's Make a Deal. We're picking doors, we're picking fighters, and we're putting you guys in these fighters' shoes. There's been a lot of topics going on in the world of mixed martial arts. So a lot of fighters we haven't heard from about certain topics, at least not enough. So, AK, you were the last man of the 2 to get a victory. So you get to decide whether you want to go first or not, or if you want to pass on over to Jed Mishu.
Let's go, Mike. Number 1, first, always.
All right. So you could pick any door between 1 and 4.
Door number 1. All I do is
door number 1. Door number 1. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately, AK, because there are, as you know, this sport moves very quickly, and debatable topics outside of like the GOAT conversation and all of that, pound for pound, those things can last a little bit longer. But there's one topic of discussion that has seemed to just last forever, and it doesn't seem to be going away. It is this Daniel Cormier take on whether or not Jim Miller should be a UFC Hall of Famer. This just continues on. Everybody has an opinion on it. There's a million articles being written about it all over the place. This will not die. This continues on. So for the next minute, AK, let's hear from the man himself. Let's hear from Mr. Jim Miller. about all these conversations going on about you and whether or not you are a Hall of Famer. So 1 minute on the clock.
Okay.
You are no
I'm
longer
Jim
my
Miller.
best friend. You are
I'm
Jim Miller.
All right.
You respond to this debate and what DC said and what everybody else is saying. Go.
Hey, I'm Jim Miller. I'm from Jersey. Hey, listen, I got a lot of respect for Dan Cormier. He's a good guy. But I got the most appearances in UFC history. I'm breaking records left and right. Hey, I understand. I never fought for the title. I never fought for the title. I was never even the number one contender. But when you got the accolades I got, when you got the currency with the company I got, I'm good friends with Dana White. Dana White loves me. Listen, that's the number one criteria for getting into the UFC Hall of Fame. I'm getting in. Hey, so with respect to Dan Cormier, listen, if Donald Cerrone's in there, then how can they not find a spot for Jim Miller? You know, just because I never contended for the UFC title. Records longevity has to mean something. I got the milestones, UFC 200. I'm gonna be at 300. 300 is probably where they're gonna induct me. It's just good business, eh? Jim Miller, listen, A10. Y'all know me as A10, one of the most popular nicknames in MMA. Hey, I gotta be in there. So apologies to Dan Cormier, but put me in the Hall of Fame.
Boy, you sounded like Dana White there.
Ooh. Whoa, guys, what happened there?
The AK impersonations are just incredible.
Ooh. I really listen. That's a spot on, Jim. If you heard Jim Miller talk, it's spot on. It's spot on.
I love that you do it. I keep forgetting that these rounds are so memorable because every impersonation, male, female, champion, non-champion, it's all Rodney Dangerfield all the time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. No, this is different. It sounded similar to AK Dangerfield, but it's not. It wasn't exactly. It's different. It's different.
Well, I was thinking Andrew Dice Clay for you there.
Oh yeah,
a
little bit.
That's right.
A little bit of Dice in there as well. All right, Jed. So you have doors
Take
2, 3, and 4 to choose from.
Like I'm gonna take door number 3.
Oh God, this is a sore spot. AK is well aware of how I feel about what transpired on Sunday night in Miami, Florida. If you haven't heard my reaction, you go listen to Heck of a Morning on Tuesday. I was not very kind to this Floyd Mayweather boxing card. It was trash. But door number 3 is John Gotti III, Jed Mishu, a man who...
So I also got to do Andrew Dice Clay.
A man who took... he seemed to have taken this thing very seriously. Perhaps he was a little bit naive heading into this fight with Floyd Mayweather. And at this point, I'm sure you have seen what transpired. And as first reported by our wonderful colleague, Stephen Morocco, John Gotti III gets a 6-month suspension from the Florida Commission for his actions, and Floyd Mayweather got no suspension for his actions, despite bringing 800 people to the ring and surrounding it so that the judges and the commentators could not do their friggin' jobs. So you are John Gotti III. React to everything that happened on Sunday and react to the suspension you just received and Floyd not getting any kind of suspension at all. 1 minute on the clock, go.
It's anti-Italian discrimination, Mike. That's what it is. What am I doing here? What am I, a putz? This is nonsense, Mike. That guy comes to the ring with 500 of his guys. I just got me and my brothers. Just me and my brothers, Mike. Come on now. Bum couldn't even put me down. He's trying to the greatest of all time. He couldn't win a street fight with me, so we had to bring all the people around. The nonsense. Kenny Bayless? Kenny Shameless? Nonsense, Mike. He's coming at me. This is anti-Italian discrimination, pure and simple. That's all it is. You go ask Tony Soprano about this. He'll tell you what's going on. We got to get a union. We got to get the league together to fight this. This will not stand, Mike. I want this suspension revoked immediately, and I want to run it back because I'm going to show pretty boy Floyd money. I'm going to show him these 2 mitts right here. In the street or out, Conor McGregor on my back right here beside me. I'll show him what's up. This is absolutely ridiculous, Mike Heck.
Wow.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I started this, by the way. I apologize to the listeners.
I had to do it. If AK is going to do it.
Anyone who is deservedly offended by these impressions we just did, I apologize. I am so sorry. We're all having a laugh here. I do apologize, though.
This is like old SNL when Mike Myers used to host Coffee Talk. That's what both of you guys try to do.
I'm
I'm feeling verklempt. I'll give you a topic. Talk amongst yourselves. Rhode Island, not a road or an island.
Tried to channel my Silvio Dante. That's all I was trying to do in there.
Yes. By the way, for context, door number 4 was Patchy Mix reacting to the bantamweight title fight. Want to hear from him. Number 2 would have also been fun for Jed. Michael Chandler reacting to everything going on with Conor McGregor, and Jed's already delivered one of the all-time great.
Is it too late?
I mean, it's going to be tough for Jed to beat his last Michael Chandler impression. I believe Jed had to do Michael Chandler and Juliana Pena. I think you had to do a Juliana Pena impression at one point as well, which was incredible.
Oh
no, that was Damon. Maybe Damon.
I remember the
Juliana
Chandler
Pena
one for sure.
Yeah, the Chandler one was great. Go back in the archives and find that one. So vote now. Like I said, preview show for the 3 cards was myself and Jose Youngs. We recorded it last night. It's going to premiere 3 p.m. Eastern. Talking about a lot of the stuff we talked about here. We'll have a People's Pre-Fight show on Saturday ahead of UFC Vegas 75. Jed will be in Atlanta for the PFL card, so did a great job last week. He'll do a fine job this week as well.
I'm getting demoted. Did a great job. He'll be fine. He'll be fine this week.
I don't know if Deontay Wilder's going to be there again.
I doubt we're going to get Deontay again.
Maybe you get John Jones. Maybe you get some John Jones. Maybe you get a one-on-one with Don Davis, and you can get his reaction to the graphic. That's what I want to hear.
God, I would absolutely do that if that's an option.
I know you would.
Don,
I know you would.
Don, let's talk about the graphics.
Yes, and then we can, but follow along with all that, MMAfighting.com, Bellator, PFL, UFC, etc. So get the votes in. Let's bring in His Honor, the Honorable E. Casey Leiden. Hi, Casey.
Hello.
Spirited battle here. Do we have a winner or do we need more time?
We do have a winner. We have a winner.
Okay. Who will take on New York Rick next week for the somewhat disputed BTL title?
I'm just getting over those incredible impressions.
Gabagool.
It's a me, Mario.
Oh, wow. That was incredible.
Thank you. Yeah. Your winner today with 55% of the votes is... He's back, baby. Jed Meshew.
Oh, there he is. Jed Meshew challenging New York Rick next week. Wow.
I will not be challenging him next week, actually. So.
Oh, damn it.
I'm on vacation next week, so AK, I hope you come in. I hope you can deliver Andrew Dice Pay Lee and deliver us from this terrible world where New York Rick is our champion. But otherwise, had a ton of fun today, fellas. We ended on such a high note. I got to do a Sopranos impression. That was just the best. So I'm feeling great right now, guys.
I might have to do a New York Rick impression now that I think about it. Hey, my name's Rick. I'm from New York. Hey, I'm walking here. I'm walking here. God. People listen to the MMA Hour. They know that's what he sounds like, yeah.
Well, he is New York Rick after all.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Exactly.
He's not Boston Rick.
No.
He's not South Dakota Rick. He's New York Rick. And he'll be back next
week. Can we get a Boston Mike episode versus Andrew Dice K. Lee episode?
AK Dice Clay.
You got about 15 minutes of Boston Mike on Tuesday's episode of Heck of a Morning. AK heard the whole thing, so I think he can attest what happened when I was talking about the Floyd Mayweather John Gotti III trash card that we watched on Saturday. So Casey, you can hit the music. We are done. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back next week to recap it all. PFL 5, maybe we'll recap something. Bellator 297, UFC Vegas 75, and then it's on the road to Jacksonville, Florida for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Josh Emmett versus Ilya Taporia, the main event. And the good news, it's an ABC card. So we're going to get a little 3 p.m. Eastern main card action. So get excited for that. So thank you very much for AK, for Jed, for Casey on the ones and twos. The iconic voice of Esterlin takes you home. I am Mike Hack. Back next week. Good night, everybody.
Hey, this is Esterlin. You've been watching Between the Links. Hey, I'm Esterlin. You can tell by my voice. This is how I always talk. Esterlin. That's my name.